The toughest goodbye I've ever had to say was oddly enough to my middle toe. It was a warm Saturday in the beginning of May, and I had been cutting grass all spring just as any teenage kid in attempts to make some extra money to spend. My hopes were to spend it all at the Red Hot Chili Peppers concert later that weekend with my friends. After about an hour of cutting and 3 bottles of water, I stopped the mower and walked around to survey my work. Things looked pretty good except for a small patch, no bigger than a triangle you can make with your fingers, that I missed, situated on a hill in the backyard. I'd known the lady was a little picky, so I figured I'd best go over the spot again. I pushed the mower around the hill and decided to attack the pesky spot from above. I aimed the path of the mower down the hill at the spot and started the engine. However, after only a step down the slope, I lost my footing and started to slip. In an attempt to keep my balance, I tried to hang on the mower. However, I underestimated how slippery the hill actually was and fell flat on my butt with the mower landing directly on top of my left foot. Almost 2 years later, I struggle to find the words to describe the sound I heard at that moment. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll ever be able to get it out of my head. In a state of adrenaline and panic, I threw the mower off to the side and looked down at the mess that was my foot. My brand new black Nike sneakers looked as though they had exploded. From the angle I was laying, I couldn't see much of the damage. Thus, in an act of stupidity, I decided to stand up and assess the injury myself. Realistically, one of the dumbest ideas I've ever had. Blood came rushing out of the hole in the top of my shoe at a stomach-cringing rate. Thus, in an act of stupidity, I decided to stand up and assess the injury myself. Realistically, one of the dumbest ideas I've ever had. Blood came rushing out of the hole in the top of my shoe at a stomach-cringing rate, an image I wish I could soon erase. Pain began to engulf my entire leg as I started to yell for help amidst a cavalcade of cuss words. Thankfully, a woman playing with her kids and another man that was out tending to his garden heard and were over to help almost instantly. Minutes later, an ambulance arrived and sped off with me lying in the back, confused, in pain, and scared. Luckily, my dad stood right next to me and kept me attentive the whole time. I arrived at the hospital fearing the worst. I wasn't sure I'd ever walk again. They took me into the ER and began to clean me up regardless of my squawks of pain. After surgery that I was forced to stay away for, I was told that I had lost almost the entirety of my middle toe, broken every bone in my index toe multiple times over, severely severed it, and faced the possibility of losing it, not to mention a big broken toe on top of that. I spent the next 5 days in the hospital bed in complete disbelief over what had happened that weekend. For the next month, my days were spent being wheeled between my bedroom, my living room, and my porch by my parents and friends while I was in a pain pill-induced haze. Sleeping became tough, and the sound of distant lawnmowers in my neighborhood. Saying goodbye to my middle toe added goodbyes to my potential college soccer plans, my ticket to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, ever wearing sandals in public again, and the rest of my senior year. Luckily, I was able to salvage my senior prom and go in a wheelchair with enough pain pills in me to supply a small corner pharmacy. At the time, I overreacted and thought that my life was pretty much over and would never be the same again. Saying goodbye to part of my body was a pretty tough concept to grasp, and while I still consider it probably my hardest goodbye I've ever had to make in my life, losing only one toe is probably the best case scenario I could have had.